What's made you successful?
I have all these stupid little sayings that I tell myself all the time or tell employees or whatever. And one of them is the one thing in life that you can control is your effort. And I always work my ass off. Always. You know, first in, last out. I went 7 years when I started my first company without a vacation. I lived like I was broke because I was, and obviously today I still do. Yeah, I don't know why me in terms of why I'm here and somebody else isn't, but I've always just tried to bust my ass and be smart about it and always keep learning and trying to improve.
Need motivation?
Watch Top 10 with Believe Nation.
Hey, it's Carmichael, and I make these videos because you are probably the most ambitious person in your circle, but you know you're capable of more. And you get that push by surrounding yourself with the best. So today, let's learn from one of the best, Mark Cuban, and my take on his top 10 rules of success. Enjoy. Rule number 2, accept your fear.
How do you fight the fear to take the risk?
You don't. You accept it, and you use that as motivation. I can't even tell you how many times I was terrified. You know, when I first started my business, Barbara's right. You know, when you're broke, you got nowhere to go but up. I was sleeping on the floor, eating mustard and ketchup sandwiches. I had nothing to lose.
Right.
And so, you know, and I was terrified that, look, if I didn't make my next sale, my business was over. And that just kept me going because I didn't like sleeping on the floor. I didn't like gaining 30 pounds because the only place I really ate anything was going to a bar, buy $1, $2 beer and eating $30 worth of fried mushrooms. And that motivated me just to keep going and going. And, you know, that fear is going to be inside of you no matter what. I don't care where you are in your life, you are going to be afraid at some level, and you just got to keep on working. And part 2 to that is if you do the work and you're prepared, that's what builds confidence to overcome that fear and work through it.
Rule number 3, always keep learning.
How often do you educate yourself a day? Like, is it like an hour? Like
Every day, every minute, everything I do is about learning more because that's the only way I can kick your ass. You know, it's not. I'm not going to out athletic you, right? It's not about my basketball IQ. It's about my business IQ, right? And technology and business, and everything's always changing. If, you know, 5 years ago, if someone would ask me about artificial intelligence, I wouldn't know, right? Yet AI is the most important part of technology and really business going forward. So if I'm going to be an effective investor, an effective mentor, an effective, operator of businesses, even with the Mavs, I got to understand AI because, like with the Mavericks, when you talk about analytics, it's changed so dramatically, even over the last 5 years, going from, different types of things per and, advanced RPM and all these different metrics for basketball to how do you implement artificial intelligence and pose estimation and computer vision, and how do you understand all that stuff to make the right decisions for the Mavs? And so if I want to be in a position to make those decisions and not just ask somebody else to do it, I got to learn it. And so I put in hours, I do tutorials, I take little online classes, and it doesn't make me an expert. It's not like I'm going to sit, I could get a job if I needed to running AI or running tech for a big company. I couldn't. But I understand all the concepts and understand the issues and how to apply them to business. So if you're going to be good at anything, you got to stay ahead of the game. And business is the ultimate sport. I used to say it to Dirk, and now I say it to Luka. It's like, dude, you play 48 minutes, a 48-minute game, you practice a couple hours, you go home and you relax and you play, you play Call of Duty. Business is 24/7. I'm going every day because there's some 16-year-old kid out there trying to kick my ass in one of my companies, and it ain't going to happen, right? And so I'm that competitive, and I'm that, I work that hard at learning to try to stay ahead of the game.
Rule number 4, follow your curiosity.
Michael Jordan had the body, he had the temperament of a champion, so he goes into sports. Do you think they call that bounded rationality? Instead of saying, I could be every possible thing in the world, you kind of limit it and say, all right, I'm more of a math guy. Oh, I'm more of a people person. And then you try to find your destiny within that?
Well, I think they go hand in hand, right? Because the type of person you are, kind of points to the things you're good at. Are you 12? You're not going to know. Are you 16? You're not going to know. If you're 18, maybe if you have a special talent,
Yeah.
Right? You know, you can throw a baseball 100 miles an hour. You can sing and your voice is incredible. You know, you're, a concert pianist. You're a chess grandmaster. If you have a specific skill set or talent that just immediately propels you to the top, yeah, you want to follow that.
Yeah.
But I remember having a list. I still have it. When I graduated from college, I was getting ready to graduate, and all the different industries that I thought I might want to partake in. When you find something you're good at, go for it.
Yeah.
And I also always say it's not about passion. Everybody's got passion for something, right? Don't follow your passions, follow your efforts. Because people say, I was passionate to play baseball. I was passionate to play basketball.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean all of a sudden I was going to be good enough.
Yeah.
But I found myself being really curious about business, being really curious about technology. And that curiosity is really what drove me. And I think, particularly if you're young today, curiosity is great. Always learning and trying to find new things and being curious about new things, because that's what leads you to that path. Trying to figure out in advance, that's hard because you don't know what you don't know.
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there. Rule number 5, be yourself.
Generally speaking, Mark, as we kind of wind things up here, you have lived your life as an iconoclast. And in a way, that's a template for other people, but in a way, it isn't. So in other words, how much you've got an ordinary person, ordinary man or woman, how much of an iconoclast could you or should you be like Mark Cuban?
Oh, I don't care. You should just be yourself, right? I mean, I take pride in the fact that I didn't give a shit what anybody thought or said. I was just going to be myself, and I'm my dad's son, I'm my mom's son, I'm my brother's brother. I'm Alexis, Alyssa, and Jake's father, Tiffany's husband. I just try to do the best like everybody else. I mean, I've been blessed. Like I say all the time, I'm the luckiest guy in the world, and I just try not to take it for granted. I try to enjoy every minute. And I think now, as I've gotten a little bit older, I try to give a little bit more back than I have before, and try to help more people. And in terms of whatever, if anybody else finds himself in my position, just enjoy the moment, enjoy every minute of it.
I mean, I guess my question is, are you a role model for people in society?
I don't know. I mean, I never thought of it. I mean, it's not something I try to be. I just try to be myself. I just try to help where I can, do what I can, be a good dad, and I'm not trying to be something for somebody else, just myself.
Rule number 6, don't be afraid to fail.
I'd like to talk a little bit about failure. You've had some, and famously, I think were fired from early jobs, right, which forced you to be an entrepreneur. Were there any failures that in hindsight were just super valuable and like set you on the path?
Yeah, all of them. Yeah, I mean, I learned more from the places I got fired from and the places I worked that I hated than I did from the places I liked. I learned what not to do. I got fired because I went to close a sale instead of opening up a retail store and sweeping the floor, yada, yada, thinking that when I brought back a check from a closed deal, he would be all excited, and he fired me. I learned from that sales cures all. That company was out of business not much later.
Yeah.
And, it just taught me so many lessons about how to deal with things, how to treat people, what to focus on. And that led to, me getting started, and also taught me that, when I was living 6 guys in a 3-bedroom apartment, I had nothing to lose, nothing. Right. And so being young was the perfect time to start a business, because what was my downside? We take in a 7th roommate, it's just like, and so, there's so much I learned from the places where things on the surface seemed to go wrong, but I learned what not to do. And sometimes that's just as important as what you do.
Rule number 7, just do it.
You've got to go to AFWorks to see our AFWork team. You just got to meet some of our Spark Tank finalists. What advice would you give them on innovation and how to take it forward?
I mean, learn from what you saw up here. I mean, the brilliance of each and every one of those ideas is that someone saw a problem And let me add, all of us have had ideas that we thought were going to be the next great thing, right? We get that feeling in our stomach, oh, this is going to be amazing. And then you talk about it with your friends or who you work with, and they say, what a great idea. And then most of us stop. What you saw up here and what made it so compelling is that they didn't stop. There weren't complicated solutions, right? I mean, some of them were advanced technologically or they were super smart, but they were simple in that they just took basic problems and they tried to solve them. There's nothing, that's something each and every one of us can do. And so the best advice that I can give you is do it. You know, when you have that idea, when you have that opportunity, do it, because that's what separates the people that just separates the entrepreneurs or the intrapreneurs from everybody else. They just took that first step. Don't be afraid, take that first step. What's the worst thing that can happen?
Rule number 8, be agile.
Innovate, be agile, because we're all going through a reset. And, you know, like I say all the time, we're going to look back in 10, 15 years, and there's going to be 5, 10, 20, 50 companies that are world-class game changers that were created because of this pandemic. Why can't it be you? Why can't it be your company? Why can't you change the game? You know your competitors are struggling as well. And even if you're competing with larger companies who maybe can work on smaller margins, or maybe you can work on smaller margins because you're lean and mean, they're worried about protecting their legacy businesses. You know, they can't be as agile as a small business can. And that's the other point I'm making. Innovate. And that innovation doesn't have to come from the top. Again, when you're talking to your customers, when you're talking to your employees who may be talking more to your customers, ask them for ideas on how you would do things differently. Because every CEO, every entrepreneur goes through that thought process prior to all this where they say, if I only had the time, I would do A, B, or C. If I only had the time, I would redo my marketing materials, my website, whatever. If I only had the time, I would redo my supply chain. Or if I only had the time, I have all these new ideas I'd like to try. Now you have the time. Now's the time to do it. Now's the time to be agile. Now's the time to innovate. You know, one of my favorite sayings is when you run with the elephants, there's the quick and the dead. And now you got to be really, really quick because the elephants can't run at all. They can't dance. And so this is a unique time, a unique opportunity.
Rule number 9, try different things.
Got to be great at something. It's not just about being good and doing your job and getting through the day and not creating any problems. It's about what can you be great at? And that's where the effort comes in. Now, you're not going to just be able to pick and choose and be great at it. I couldn't be great at basketball or hockey or a lot of different things, right? So you got to try as many different things because, like I said before, it doesn't matter how many times you fail. You just got to be right one time. That's it, one time. So if you're busting your ass in the mailroom and that ain't it, what are you doing at night? What do you do in the weekends? What can you make that you can sell to other people? What is it that you can buy that you can sell to other people? What is it you can sell online? What is it what service that you can offer? Can you go and teach Alexa how to do skills and go door to door? Whatever it is, you've got to find that one thing you can be great at, build a business around that, bust your ass, and it's possible.
And rule number 10, the last one before some very special bonus clips, is share great stories.
Do you have a favorite Shark Tank behind the scenes story? Like, is there some?
Oh, there's so many of them.
Yeah.
There's so many of them. Most of the time, so Shark Tank, when you come on, they might last anywhere from 30 minutes for a stupid deal to 60 to 90 minutes. So in real time, they go on forever, and a lot gets edited out. And there's just times, particularly Lori, where she'll say something and didn't realize that it's completely inappropriate. And so, you know, because she just doesn't think that way. And so it's a complete double entendre. And so one time, she'll kill me for saying this. So one time we had a vitamin company, and I hate vitamin companies on Shark Tank because they make all these claims, any supplements, right? And so they came on, and it was spray, and the guy's sitting there, and he goes, you know, a lot of people have problems swallowing vitamins, pills, right? So we created this spray. She goes, I have no problem swallowing, and we just died the minute, you know, because guy throws on the set, and then her husband's back in the back laughing, and then it dawned on her what she had just said. So just those types of moments, or Barbara, or Kevin too. Kevin, we like to pick on Kevin a lot because he's kind of a one-trick pony with royalties and licensing, but there's times when he's got a really great heart and he tells great stories.
when instead of just holding on to all of the stock that you got from Yahoo, you did what we call a collar. You collared it. So you hedged it. So tell everybody what went through your mind, because that was a big bet with huge dollars, right?
Yeah.
And it was a...
It was actually pretty simple. So, hedging stock, if, Yahoo paid us in Yahoo stock. And, I was smart enough to recognize, I guess, that what goes up could go down. But it wasn't that big a step because I was worth more than $1 billion. How much did I need, right? So I was telling everybody, just find me a way to hedge it. So in the event, look, if the stock price goes up and I leave something on the table, so be it, right? But I like that B next to my name and I wanted to keep it. And so I sold calls, bought puts, and effectively hedged it so that by the time, so there was a period of time from when I'd done that, and the internet stock market kept on going up, and I told people I'd hedged it, and Goldman Sachs, the company, had told people what I'd done. And I remember going on CNBC, the business channel, and then the guy going, boy, don't you feel stupid that Yahoo stock has kept on going up and you had this hedge? And I'm like, yeah, I feel so stupid riding around my G5 that I bought online, And it was just like, not to sound like a crazy, greedy capitalist, but yeah, and it was like, I just didn't want to screw it up. And so I hedged it, and then the internet bubble burst, and I was fully protected, and actually even made a little bit more money. And the motto, what I learned was you don't need to be greedy. I was very, very blessed. I was very fortunate. Look, I didn't plan the internet stock market to go up, and I didn't plan it to go down, so I was lucky in terms of scale, and I didn't want to screw it up, and so I hedged.
We gave it a good go, right, from 01 to 08. We raised it back up, but it was, they did slip on a big banana peel, purple and yellow banana peel for Yahoo, for you that know their colors.
That was another thing. Wait, now you go. And so we sell to them, right? And our office is in Dallas, and the way we ran our business, it was just like lean and mean, right? You invest in your product, you invest in your customers, you invest in your people, and we had open offices. You don't need fancy stuff. They immediately came down and just redid all the furniture in purple and gold. I'm like, it's cool. That's my high school's colors, But why are we spending this money? Got a whole new office, a whole new building. I'm just like, why are we spending this money? One of the things in my rules, right, when I look at companies to invest in, if someone walks in with swag, here's my coffee mug with my logo, here's your t-shirt with my logo. I don't see anybody wearing a t-shirt with a startup's logo. Do you?
No.
Would you wear some other startup's logo polo shirt? Hell no. Hell no, right? It's just a waste of money. Put your money where you're able to differentiate yourself and add value that separates yourself so you can get ahead. Don't waste it.
One time, as you know, I went to Indiana, and in Dallas in the mid-90s, when we had a good basketball team, we literally would, when we wanted to listen to our big games like Indiana, Purdue, go Hoosiers, we would call somebody in Bloomington who would put a radio next to a speakerphone and dial us, and we'd sit on the other side listening over a speakerphone, drinking our beer and whooping it up or doing whatever. And the internet was just starting to happen, and now I'm a tech geek and I'm like into all of it. And we're like, there's got to be a better way to do this. And so one of my buddies from Indiana, Todd Wagner, was like, look, we've been thinking about this. And I'm like, no, I'll figure it out. I'm a networking guy now. And so we looked for ways to stream Indiana basketball. We called it netcasting back then, over the brand new internet. And so I went out and bought a Packard Bell 90 megahertz computer and an ISDN line and downloaded all this software. And I said, you know what? I'm going to figure it out. And lo and behold, by, early 1995, we had figured out a way to, we took these 8-hour VCRs and connected it to a local radio station, record them, we'd bring them back, go through this process called encoding, and put it up on this website we called AudioNet. And then I'd go to any online forum, AOL, Prodigy, CompuServe, UUNet, whatever it was, or Usenet, and if you're interested in Dallas sports at all, because we hadn't gotten to Indiana yet, if you're interested in Dallas sports, go to this website, AudioNet. And back then, you had a dial-up modem, You had to download this software called TCP/IP, and you had to have software from your internet provider, which meant that so few people knew how to use it. We had no idea if it would work or not. But all of a sudden, AudioNet went from 10 people a day to 100 people to 1,000 people a day. And as we added radio stations, they're getting calls from all over the world from people who are listening to their shows on demand, not even live. And then we worked with a company that put together live software, a company called Zing, and we made it live, and then everything changed. And that's really when streaming was born. And we just grew that. And then in 1998, we got into video, changed the name to broadcast.com, went public, and it was the biggest IPO in the history of the stock market at the time. And then we sold it to Yahoo.
The winner in AI controls the world.
Yeah.
China puts together a future plan saying, whoever dominates in AI, and they're subsidizing, Tencent, Alibaba, et cetera.
Yeah,
right. And
that's right.
They
know it's a race.
It is a race. We cut our Office of Technology and Science to one person who was an assistant to Peter Thiel. That's where we stand. So when we talk about infrastructure jobs, robots are built in Germany and they're getting bought by Chinese companies in some respects, and I think some Japanese companies bought as well. We don't build robots here very well. Right. I just invested in my first robotics company, Hirobotics, that puts robots into companies. They're in Kansas City, I think it is now. But they lease and rent and sell robots into all these different types of circumstances to replace people. Right. But I had to learn. I'm not saying it's a good thing or bad thing. It's going to happen with or without me. But I wanted to learn what was going on. Those building up a robotics industry here, investing in our AI industry here, that's the new infrastructure.
Yeah.
Because if we don't do it and China or Russia win those wars, we're SOL.
Right.
We're out of luck, right? And so when we talk about the price of assets going up, if you're hiring, if you're talking about intellectual assets, if you're hiring, like we were just saying, the price is skyrocketing. People are, Montreal has become the center of the universe for computer vision. It's not US-based schools that are dominating any longer in those areas. We've got a lot of smart kids in MIT, all different schools, right? And kids are starting to realize it's a place for them to go. And I'm out there telling people the first trillionaire is going to come from somebody who comes up with something really unique in AI.
If you come up with an idea where you say, I can make dollar bills for 50 cents, would you go out and raise money, or would you just go out and sell it? You just go out and do it, and that's what you have to do. And look, we all go through that fear factor of, do I quit my job? Can I do this? Can I do this, and what happens next? The one thing I know with 100% certainty, and what I would tell myself is, if I can sell and become a better and better salesperson and be great at selling, I'm always going to be successful whether I'm working for myself or if the company that I started just didn't work. I'll give you an example. Out of Indiana, before I went down to Dallas, I needed to start something. And I decided that everybody drank milk, and I found this product, powdered milk, that was cheaper, and everybody needed to save money. And I was going to go out there and sell it because it was cheaper. Now, it didn't taste quite as good. And so but I went out there to try to sell it. Failed miserably. But I learned how to make the sales effort even when things weren't going right. I learned that the rejection was, every no got me closer to a yes. That not every product was perfect, but I could take those same skills, even in failure, and translate them. So that what I learned selling garbage bags door to door, what I learned from selling powdered milk that was awful, what I learned from selling local area networks at Micro Solutions, all those things accumulated, and I got better at selling. So I always knew, people always say to me, if you lost everything, what would you do? I can sell. I can sell. And it's not about selling ice to Eskimos. It's not about, convincing people to do this. Selling is always about helping. Selling is always about understanding the person you're talking to and what their needs are. And if someone can help me make my life easier, yeah. People, now with employees, people always say, well, what's the definition of a great employee? Someone who can reduce the stress of those around them. And it's the same thing. What's the definition of a great salesperson? Someone who can reduce the stress of their salespeople. And if in looking at your company and looking at your life and looking at your goals, if you're able to go out there and recognize that whether it works or doesn't work, you're putting yourself in a position where you're helping somebody, not convincing somebody, and you're reducing their stress. You're gonna be okay. It's gonna work out. And that's the confidence I've built in myself that wasn't necessarily always there. But I learned that if I try to help, if I reduce people's stress, good things can happen.
What is your thing, and when did you kind of understand what it was?
It hasn't changed. My thing is learning whatever is new and applying it in ways that other people aren't thinking of. And so when I got fired from a job selling software, started a company, and within 6 months, this was the early days of PCs, I recognized that, okay, we need to connect PCs together. Back then, you walked around and you had your 5 1/4 inch floppy, and who would need to connect a PC? We started, writing software for local area networks, became a systems integrator, $30-some million run rate, and sold it to H&R Block. And then got to the internet. Okay, let's look at this internet thing. Someone's going to need to put audio and then video on there. Great. And then after Yahoo did Yahoo, right? I'm like, you know what? I'm looking at these big screen TVs that cost $30,000 that are high definition television sets, and I'm thinking, you know what? Eventually, they're going to follow the price performance curve of traditional consumer electronics, and they're going to come down in price. So I started the first all high definition TV network called HDNet. Then I'm looking and saying, okay, you know what? It's like 2006, 2007, and traditional television and cable is going digital. I'm saying, you know what? There's going to be a lot of storage space and first access digital space that cable companies aren't used to using. So let's take a movie production company that we created and let's make it available for day and date distribution where people will pay $20 to the cable company to watch this brand new movie, and we get to keep 10 of it. And so we had 29 productions. We started producing movies, and lo and behold, the first movie we created was a documentary called Enron, the Smartest Guys in the Room. Got nominated for Academy Award, then we didn't really create any good ones after that, but by being first leveraging digital storage, we were able to take advantage and make a lot of money. And in the NBA with the Mavericks, just doing those types of things, and it's what I like to do now.
It worked out okay.
It worked out okay with Broadcast.com, but there was a moment where you almost sold it before.
Yeah.
Tell
Microsoft.
that story.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Microsoft was going to buy us for $75 million, and then it got.
So you would have made 20.
No, I would have made about 30. 30. It would have been all right, but.
This would be a slightly different conversation.
Yeah, you wouldn't know who the I was.
You would have been on stage here pitching a new company.
Yeah, probably, right?
Hi, I'm Mark Cuban.
Yeah.
Here's my new app.
Cyberdust. Yeah, it would have been a completely different conversation. Thank you, Lord. What I advise people, when I sat down to make a decision, my goal always was I wanted to retire by the time I was 35, right? Period, end of story. And I sold my first company, Micro Solutions, and I was going to be willing to live like a student. I was 20, I just turned 30, I guess. And I bought a lifetime pass in American Airlines and just partied like a rock star. I was getting with as many people as I possibly could and going to as many countries as much as I could and loving life. And that was my goal, right? And then came back and started buying and selling stocks, made another $25 million, whatever, crushing it. Then we started AudioNet, and I financed it out of my pocket till we got big enough where we wanted strategics. And again, on one hand, we were doing 1 million people a day coming in doing multimedia in 1998.
Is that raising money always seems to be like the big thing to entrepreneurs coming in. Well, if I can only raise this money, raising money isn't an accomplishment, it's an obligation. The best equity is sweat equity. What you can do and seriously, if you're putting in the sweat and you're putting in the time and you're not out there raising money and you're grinding it out and you're hustling, then you deserve to give yourselves a hand, because that's what it's all about. Because if you don't do that, it's not going to work.
I grew up, my dad did upholstery on cars, my mom did odd jobs. My mom, when I was in high school, was worried about whether or not I could have a career, and made sure she hooked me up with a family friend to learn how to lay carpet, because she wanted me to know a trade just in case things didn't pan out if and when I went to college. So yeah, it wasn't like, oh yeah, this is destiny and my parents are going to hook me up, or, I knew this was going to happen. It was, who the hell knows what's going to happen, but I was all in for wherever direction it went.
You talked about companies having a unique advantage. Can you speak more on that for me, please?
Sure. I mean, what is it that a customer can get from you that they can't get from anybody else? And you have to be very careful with that too. When I just talked about lying to yourself as an entrepreneur, because often we'll say, well, it's just like Uber, but it has pink cars. Uber doesn't have pink cars. That's a difference without a distinction, right? Lots of times people get confused between what's a product and what's a feature. Pink Uber cars, that's a feature. That's not a unique product. Excuse me. So you have to know what it is that you do that is so unique, your potential customers say, whoa, I did not know that. As opposed to, well, I'm going to go tell Uber that they should probably add pink cars. Because whenever you're competing with, all of you are going to compete with Amazon at some point, if you're not already. Just the reality. And so you've got to understand, when Amazon starts looking at my customer base, what is it that I can convey to them that makes me unique? And that's what I meant by unique difference.
I started my first business when I was 12. I was buying and selling baseball cards, buying and selling stamps, anything I could do to make money, I was hustling and trying to do. So I was into business, but I not so much where it was all my friends were into it with me, so they wouldn't know.
Baseball cards.
Yeah, baseball cards, you name it. I mean, I grew up in Pittsburgh, and so I would, probably even less than 12 years old, I would, go out and buy a bunch of baseball cards that I collected, and I would say, okay, you're guaranteed to have a Pittsburgh Pirate in this package, and I would charge 3 times as much, and I'd set up on this park bench down in the park down in Scott Township where I grew up, and I'd have these little sales, and it was great. I made money, and it was, and I learned as much about business when I was 9, 10, and 12 as I learned any other time.
There's nothing that AI won't impact. As big as having been around a while, I saw the impact of PCs, then I saw the impact of local area networks, then I saw the impact of wide area networks, then I saw the impact of the internet, then I saw the impact of mobile, then I saw the impact of wireless. Now I'm seeing the impact of artificial intelligence, and it dwarfs any of those things. And if I don't understand how to apply it to my businesses, I remember selling PCs and software and walking in saying, you don't need to use that pen and paper on a notepad or a ledger pad. Now we're going to give you a spreadsheet, and by the way, here's a spreadsheet that costs $495, and I had to pay to go get trained on how to sell it, which is crazy now when you think about it. But then we said, okay, now you can play what if. Then we said you can connect these PCs. Unless I understood the technology, how was I going to explain it? How was I going to understand it? Unless I understand it now, how am I going to invest in it? Then I got to go trust somebody who says, oh yeah, I know AI, and maybe they do, maybe they don't. And it's really easy just to say, you figure it out. That's just not my style.
So you're building a base of knowledge, and then you think that at some point it's going to pay dividends in terms of...
It already has.
Right?
I mean, if you truly believe AI is going to change everything, how are you going to understand what people are doing to change everything unless you at least have a foundational understanding of it? Now, I'm not going to build a 1,000,000-layer neural network and try to change the world. I'm not going to write a research paper and saying, here's why the lottery ticket approach works, and you can build smaller neural networks with less data and be more resource efficient. But I can read that stuff and understand that when somebody says, okay, we're building this project and we need this size data set or this size data set, or we need this amount of resources, I can ask questions and understand the answers.
The same thing I told myself, the same thing I tell everybody. One, you're 21, 22, 23 years old, right? You don't have to figure it out right now. Don't try, right? You spend all this money, paying to learn. Now it's your chance to get paid to learn. You don't need the perfect job. You just need to go somewhere where you'll learn and start to be exposed to different ideas. And now it's not like, when Greg 40 years ago was graduating.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
And me 5 years ago, it was like, get a career. And, the pressure was, get a career, go work for IBM or General Motors and get a pension. Those days are gone. People can't even pay their pensions anymore. And so you're a free agent.
And you're always going to be a free agent on the market. You guys are the Kevin Durant's and LeBron James, where you're always out there and can go find a better situation for yourself. Do what's best for you. What have you got to lose? Like when I started my company, after I got fired by Michael Umecki, what was good? How bad could it be? I would lose my Motel 6 towel, It was just like, what have you got to lose? And yeah, I understand there's pressure from student loans, and there's a lot of conversations we can have there, right? But, you can get a job that doesn't have to be perfect. You can learn at that job, and you guys have the pedigree, you have the brains, you have the initiative to go out and try the next job, The good news is the economy's good enough that it may not be perfect, but you can go job to job. Don't look for the perfect answer. Just look to get the experience, look to learn, because all these different exposures, all the different things you learn, learning how to learn, that's what's going to get you excited and juice you for something that you love. Because once you find something you love to do, that's when the magic happens. Because when you're able to find something you love to do, then you can start focusing on, how can I be great at this? And like Greg found out he was a great networker. I like to, play with technology and try to do things first. Whatever it is that you find about yourself, then you can try to be great at it. And it's rare when people quit things they're great at. And so trying those things, so that's how I advise people. Don't stress, just go out and try different things. Now I'm going through and teaching myself neural networks and, doing the same thing with machine learning and GANs and this and that, because AI is going to have more of an impact than the internet did. AI plus new types of chipsets plus 5G is going to change things far more than we've ever seen anything change. And understanding where and how to apply it is going to be critical, but just as important, knowing how to segregate and separate the right, is as important, because every email y'all are about to send me is going to say, I have this AI solution and we're using algorithms. Yeah, of course you are, right? And then what? What really makes you different? What really sets you apart? But if I didn't do that work, if I didn't sit down and do the AWS machine learning tutorials, if I didn't go on YouTube and take, the NYU Introduction to Neural Networks or whatever, I'm not going to know it, I'm not going to be able to apply it, and I'm not going to be able to be first. And that's fun. That's fun. Knowing I get to kick the ass of some 22-year-old NYU graduate, that's awesome,
My dad busted his ass. I mean, he worked six days a week, left at 7:30 in the morning, got back at 6 or 7 o'clock. Lost his eye in an accident doing upholstery. He had a staple break when he was putting some covering on a car seat. It was a middle class upbringing. My mom did odd jobs. They just wanted something better. I mean, my grandparents came over from Russia, and my dad was the first generation. My uncles were the first generation Americans, like my mom too. And like every child of immigrants, they wanted better for their kids.
It's funny. I mean, a lot of people grow up that way, right? But not many people end up like you. So what do you think that's the result of?
I think, everybody's got something that they're good at, and the hard part is just finding it. And I found out early that I was a good salesperson, that I really liked business. Like I like sports. I mean, I read everything I possibly could, played sports as much as I could, just wasn't as good as I wanted to be. And business was the same way. I mean, as long as I could remember, I was buying and selling baseball cards, garbage bags, whatever I could find, stamps to collectors. But I was also reading everything I possibly could about business. And, I was that unusual kid that I'd rather read about Ted Turner than go to the movies. And so I think that created a foundation. And my parents didn't always, my dad used to always say, I don't understand what you're doing, but I'm glad you're doing it. And so I had my ups and downs along the way, of course. But I just think that I just put in the time and was fortunate enough to really get excited about business. And that paid off benefits over the long haul.
You've never been shy to speak up on issues that are important to you.
Yep.
And one of those themes I've found has been around fairness. And whether that's, calling out referees for not calling games consistently, or, calling out a Shark Tank contestant because you think that they're scamming their customers. Right. How do you decide what you're going to speak up on, or do you hold inside?
It's changed over the years because I have kids, because social media, Twitter in particular, is so much different and has changed kind of the rules of engagement. It's changed because of what I went through with the Mavericks last year. I missed a sexual harassment problem that we had because I took my eye off the ball. And so, I try to be self-aware and try to put myself in the shoes of the person or people or organization I'm talking about, whether it adds value. I try to put myself in my own position. How's it going to be perceived? And, is it worth it? Will it create more good than challenges? Right. And so you've got to pick your spots.
People often ask me what it takes to start a business. What is the key ingredient? How did I start the business, and how did we grow to about $20 million in sales so quickly? They all come up with some new whiz-bang idea. They're going to invent the better mousetrap. They're going to come up with new software, new hardware. And more often than not, it seems like they spent their millions before they thought through their idea. But when we talk about new companies and growth and success, there really is only one common ingredient across any type of business, whether it's oil or computers or software or anything. And that key ingredient is customers. Without customers, whether you're starting a business, running a business, expanding a business, you don't have a business. There is no business. Customers are the key ingredient. To get those profits, you got to have the customers. And you got to have happy customers. That's the bottom line. Micro Solutions, we've been going and growing, and it's impossible not to have growing pains. It's impossible not to make mistakes. We screw up all the time. And it doesn't bother me as president. If I have an employee who just didn't do something right, just made a mistake, it's good. Because if you're not making mistakes, you're not trying hard enough. These things I'm saying, they're not unique. They're not things that I just thought up in some miracle book. Things, when I talk to people in our company, when I talk to people about our company, I never have a unique thought. I can't remember. I don't know that I ever did. I can't remember if I ever will, or I don't expect ever to. There's no magic formulas to customer service. There's no magic formulas to doing things right. These sayings that you hear me say are things that I've read elsewhere and just regurgitate that. But how many people do that? We all know the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And that's nice. But do you do it? But even more importantly than the golden rule, what about the lover's rule? Do unto others as you would love to have them do unto you. That's what we try to stress at Micro Solutions. That's what we try to use to differentiate ourselves. Not just to get by, because everybody's going to be nice. When you invite someone into your house that is an acquaintance that you like, you're going to offer them coffee. You're going to offer them a donut. And that's really what you expect, if you went to their house, because you're just acquaintances. But when you leave their house, it was nice. If you go back, fine. If you don't go back, fine. That's the way customers look at businesses. If I go back, fine. If I don't go back, fine. They say that 80% of the people who have a problem tell at least 10 people. Only 10% of the people who had a good experience tell anybody. And it's the same way when you go to visit an acquaintance. And when people come to try to do business with Micro Solutions, I hope, I pray, and I try to convey to each and every one of our people that we give them a reason to want to come back. We give them a reason to do a good morning rap to say, okay, let's do business with Micro Solutions. You've got to really concentrate to do unto others as you would love to have them do unto you.
I dropped out of high school, so I wanted to take business, and the high school I went to didn't offer any business classes unless I was a senior in high school. And I'm like, come on, I'm trying to be ambitious, and they're like, no. And so I took some classes at night at the University of Pittsburgh, and then just since I was enrolled at Pitt, I just stopped going to class in high school and kept on going to class at Pitt. And they allowed me to transfer back my credits to graduate from high school. So I officially was a high school dropout until I rectified that.
Even after you had done your thing, there was still an ache to make sure that Yahoo itself was on track. Do you know what that was about?
Yeah, they were screwing everything up. Look, they had an opportunity to dominate streaming media. They also owned, at the same time, the patent to cost per click.
Yeah.
Right? Now, Google's entire business to this day is built around pay-per-click, rather, not cost per pay-per-click. Yeah. So they had the entire patent for pay-per-click. Had they just said, sorry, Google, you can't use it, there would be no Google. Instead, they said, yeah, $133 million and give us some stock. They were just too nice, right? Which blinded them in a lot of respects. And I remember walking in with a $32 million sale, saying, okay, we're going to do streaming. We're going to sell all this company's content. You know, it's worth $32 million for us. And it's going to preempt these other potential competitors. And I forget if it was Jerry or Tim or whoever said, no, we don't work that way. We don't preempt competition. We just leave it open. I'm like, okay, it's time for me to go buy a basketball team. They just didn't see these things. And I mean, it's a lesson in your businesses. There's going to be, everybody's always trying to kick your ass. And you have to figure out how to kick your own ass first. Seriously, because if you're not brutally honest with yourself in your own business about what your frailties are, someone else is going to find them. Yahoo didn't get that. Yahoo just thought, you know what, we're just going to continue moving forward and then we'll just compete with everybody else and, you know, we have no other problems. Didn't quite work out for them, did it?
I'd get a call from the Trilateral Commission, and the have not called me, and I'm pissed. So if any of you
There's
are out
no
there,
Illuminati.
there's no Illuminati.
All
I'm
the
like,
billionaires
come on,
are in
man.
it, but you.
Come on, man.
It's just you, Mark. The Illuminati's meeting right now. They just left you out.
I hate when that happens.
It's always another velvet rope.
But income disparity is a problem, right? And my thought is, anyone here, anywhere in the world, you're not entitled to, right? You're not entitled. Anyone, now listen, hear me out before you get all excited. Any one person, I don't think is entitled, right? But me trying to be smart, me as an American citizen, right? There are groups of people that need help. And I love the American way of life. And as an American citizen, I have to realize, and as someone who has influence and impact and take initiatives myself,
how people perceive entrepreneurs is changing dramatically, and how entrepreneurs are contributing to society is changing right now as we speak. And I see it on Shark Tank, right? Companies coming on Shark Tank now, particularly from younger entrepreneurs, have a social component, right? You don't want to buy something unless you think the company is contributing. Right. And even more so now, a lot of people are saying, you know what, if you're an entrepreneur and you happen to get rich, that's bad, right? And so entrepreneurs, people particularly my generation, have kind of segregated themselves into, okay, just get me all the money I can, into, okay, can be such a thing as compassionate capitalism. And really, it's falling on you guys now to set the message. If you are going to be an entrepreneur, having a social component is good. Being a compassionate entrepreneur is better. Because when you can change things, when you can hire people, like I had to go back through the companies that I control now, and I said, I wanted to make sure that nobody who works for, in particular the Arena and the Mavs, is on public assistance. Because it's wrong, I think it's wrong, that somebody who works for me doesn't make enough money to be on public assistance. That's the type of attitude I think that needs to change now with entrepreneurs. And that's now becoming part of your responsibility, and I think that's critically important. You know, guys like me, women like me can look and backtrack and backfill and where we've made mistakes, and I've made plenty and I've learned from them. But it's your opportunity, and I think it's critically important to recognize that you are going to set the tone for how people perceive entrepreneurs going forward. And if you introduce compassion, and you look at the needs of the people that work for you right from the beginning, I think you're going to have stronger companies, less turnover, and better results.
Treating people equally is not the same, is not recognizing who they truly are and taking advantage of their skills. You know, and I've learned that through Cint. I've learned that through all this. And you know, like Cint and I talk, we'll be a much better organization. I'll be a better exec. I'll be a better investor. I'll be a better shark because I recognize that, you know, treating people equally is not the same as treating them, recognizing their skills and their differences. And for this audience, it's critically important. You know, and I think there's an opportunity now, and I know hopefully, you know, people like me will recognize that the old white guys, now newly old white guys that are in positions of power, that there are things that you can do that I can't do. That there are things you see that I don't see. There are opportunities that you can create that I can't create. You know, we were trying to sell to the black community through the Mavs with multiple white men. We were trying to sell to moms with multiple white men. It's not that they're not capable. It's not that they're not skilled. It's just everybody brings something different to the table. And as an entrepreneur, you have to recognize what the differences are that you bring to the table, and you have to be brutally honest with yourself, right? You can't lie to yourself like we all lie to ourselves as entrepreneurs. But those differences can be part of your unique skill set, like I talked about earlier. And now I'm finally starting to recognize those things. And you know, the one thing I know, it's gonna make me a load more money.
Are you ready to help us get the country really hooked on our smoked fish dip?
Fish is good. The ones that have made me the most money have always been the craziest. Don't quit your day job.
Oh my God!
Could I get a volunteer to come up?
Can we both?
That's a little bit too weird for me. Can you do this? You don't want to get into a pillow fight with me. Oh, I'm going to destroy you, Robert.
We're not pillow fighting. Oh my God! Oh.
Get up, you wuss.
Who knocked Robert on the ground?
When I got to Dallas, I was a bartender at night, and I moved in. One of my buddies from Indiana said, "You got to come to Dallas." And I'm like, "I'm there." You know, my car would only get so far. It had a Fiat X19 with a hole in the floorboard that guzzled oil every 60 miles. And I went down there, and there's a place called The Village. It's was the world's largest apartment complex. We had 6 guys in a 3-bedroom apartment. I didn't have my own room. I didn't have my own drawer. I didn't have my closet. I had a pile, and I had one ratty towel that I stole from Motel 6. And that was it. And so I was looking for my career, got a job at a software store. And I was, you know, didn't have a tech background, so I was teaching myself all this. Because the way I look at tech is somebody invents it, and everybody else is tied for second place in the ability to learn it. And if I work harder and faster to really dive in, even if it means reading the manual, you know, just diving in, then I can get a head start.
How old were you during
I was 24. And so sleeping on the floor, working in a software company, you know, learning, getting better at what I was doing. And then one day, because I was dying to get out of that rat hole that I lived in, I had a chance to go out and close a sale that would have got me a $1,500 commission. And so I went to my boss, his name is Michael Humecki, and I said, "Boss, one of my responsibilities was to sweep the floor, wipe down the windows, and open the door to open the store. I got the sale. You got to let me close the sale." He goes, "No. You got to be in here to open the store." And I'm like, "Michael, no." So I made the executive decision to go out, pick up the check, thinking if I hand this guy a $15,000 check, of course he's going to change his mind. Fired me on the spot. And so here I was, living in a shithole, excuse my French, you know, just this ratty place with a Motel 6 towel, sorry, Motel 6, and really didn't know how I was going to get out. But I decided, okay, I'm a lousy employee. I went to one of the companies that I'd been talking to, Architectural Lighting, and I said, "Look, I need $500 to be able to buy the software you want, and I promise you that even if it doesn't work, I will wash your car, you know, I will walk your dog, I don't care what it is, I will do whatever it takes to make it up to you." And they gave me the $500, and that allowed me to create Micro Solutions. And 6 months later, I was out of the rat hole, and my company turned into a real company, and that's the one I sold for $6 million when I was 29, 30 years old. I describe myself as a grinder. I just, like we talked about learning, that's a grind, but I love it, and I think I've just learned what I'm good at and learned to focus on those things and try to, utilize those skills to now, not just be an entrepreneur, but probably more often now invest in and help other entrepreneurs.
I get that question all the time. So what industry should I look at? I can tell you all about artificial intelligence, computer vision, personalized medicine, but then what, right? And so, and maybe you're an expert in one of those fields and you can go for it. But what I tend to try to tell people in terms of what does it take to be successful, find something you love to do and then be great at it. Not average, not marginal, not good enough, but if you can be great at it, be great at it. If you are the greatest videographer in the history of videographers, people don't care about cell phones. What is it that you can do that makes them know that the way you do it is special? And if you can do that and convey it, then you'll be fine. If you're not sure, then, you've got to decide whether you want to stay on your own, be a contractor, or go work for somebody. It just depends. And let me add one other thing. I crushed myself, and like my brothers didn't. They took a completely different path, and they were looking just 9 to 5 at yada yada. Not everybody's got to be an entrepreneur. And so if you've got it in your blood and that's what you want to do, then find a way to be great. And if not, you'll figure it out. You'll find something else. There's a Shark Tank company from last season called Mush, right? Cool stuff. It's like this oatmeal that they package. It's fresh dried oatmeal that they package with a little spoon, and it has to be refrigerated, but you just grab it and go. And the response was great from the show. And now, like I just saw their numbers, they went from 50,000 in sales to 100,000 to 125,000 in 3 straight months. It's not scale, but they're growing, right? And they all of a sudden are like, okay, we got to go raise money and we got to do yada, 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 right? Scale is hard not just because of the economic cost, but also because of the people cost and the mind share cost. It's hard when you're dealing with a major company, and in particular if you're dealing with a big company like a Walmart or Costco or whatever, because you only get one shot at those guys. And so like I told Mush with Whole Foods, they're interested. I'm like, you're not ready. You're not ready. You have got to crawl before you ball, and so I told him, it's going to be painful not to go after that big customer, but think about what happens if you go after it and A, it's going to take capital you don't have and you're going to borrow it, or B, it doesn't work out and they return it all. Then all of a sudden you're out of business. And so you're right that you need capital to scale, but you also need the confidence that you can scale and that you can keep your customers happy. And so I always tell people, get to the point where you've taken care of the customers that you can take care of. Once you can demonstrate that, then you can get smart money, and you're talking from a position of power. And then you can go to the Walmarts of the world, the Costcos, and you may not even have to raise money. They may even provide PO leverage or PO support or connect you with a bank that does. And so I guess what I'm saying is, don't get too far ahead of yourself, because sometimes sales can be a lot more expensive than you think they are. And you've got to be careful. I've seen several of my Shark Tank companies try to get too big too fast, and it almost put them out of business.
I mean, you almost have to have that drive. Like, in other words, you can't fake it. You can't pretend that you want to read about Ted Turner and, okay, I'll skip one movie. Well, it has to be in your soul.
Yeah, I mean, you can fake it till you make it in a lot of areas, particularly if you're working for somebody else. But at the end of the day, if you're going to be great at something, you've got to make the effort to be great at something. Whether it's sports, whether it's physics, math, science, business, whatever it may be, it's not just a natural skill. You've got to learn, and particularly if you're in the technology industry, because it changes every day. When I got started, and after I was a bartender when I first came to Dallas, got into the PC industry, got fired, started my own company, but I learned early on that there was always something new, and most people didn't put in the time to learn it. It's like now with artificial intelligence. Lots of people talk about artificial intelligence. Lots of people talk about machine learning and neural networks. Not a lot of people are putting in the time to take classes or do the tutorials or to learn how to apply it to business, and that's what it takes. And that's just something I've always enjoyed, so that I've been fortunate at that.
What industry you think still requires a lot of innovation?
All of them. Seriously. I mean, look, one of my dad's favorite sayings was, you don't live in the world you were born into. Everything changes all the time. And you know what's better than change? Creating change. And so whenever I see something that's done the way it's always been done, like when I got to the NBA, my whole goal was just to F things up, right? Because everything was done the exact same way. They thought they were in the business of basketball. For 50 years, they thought they were in the basketball business. No. When you go to a basketball game, you don't remember the jump shots, the dunks. You remember who you were with, the fun you had. It's one of the few industries where that ball is in the air at the end of a game, everybody holds their breath,
And if it goes in, you're hugging people you've never seen before. You know, so you can take any industry and look at the way things have been done and try to come up and innovate. And, you know, and like I said, with just the nature of capitalism right now, all the changes that are required, every industry needs change. And there's a unique opportunity that I don't think any generation's ever seen.
Because you made it this far in a video, I want to celebrate you. Most people start and don't finish. Most people never actually follow through. Most people say they want something, but they don't ever do the work to actually get it. But you are different. You are special. Believe Nation, you made it here all the way to the end, and I love you. So as a special celebration, if you put a hashtag believe down in the comments below on this video, I will showcase you and celebrate you somewhere on the screen in a future video because you are awesome. If you want 10 more amazing rules from Mark Cuban, check the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
I had a Fiat X19 that had a hole in the floorboard. I mean, you could tell I was living the high life, right? I mean, and I was putting in oil every 60 miles and, you know, working as a bartender at night. What did I have to lose?